Chapter 7, Part 2 of Gigolo by Edna Ferber. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Sudden Sixties, Part 2. Perhaps you know that hotel on the lakefront, built during the World's Fair days? A roomy, rambling, smoke-blackened, comfortable old structure, ringed with verandas, its shabby facade shabbier by contrast with the beds of tulips or geraniums or canna that jewel its lawn. There Hannah Winter went to live. It was within 5 minutes' walk of Marcia's apartment. Rather expensive, but as homelike as a hotel could be, and housing many old-time Chicago friends. She had one room, rather small, with a bit of the lake to be seen from one window. The grim, old-fashioned hotel furniture she lightened and supplemented with some of her own things. There was a day-bed, a narrow and spindling affair for a woman of her height and comfortable plumpness. In the daytime this couch was decked out with taffeta pillows in rose and blue, with silk fruit and flowers on them, and gold braid. There were 2 silk-shaded lamps, a shelf of books, the photographs of the children in flat silver frames, a leather writing-set on the desk, curtains of pale tan English casement cloth at the windows. A cheerful enough little room. There were many elderly widows like herself living in the hotel on slender but sufficient incomes. They were well-dressed women, in trim suits or crepes, and Field's special walking Oxfords, and small smart hats. They did a little cooking in their rooms, not much, they hastened to tell you. Their breakfasts only, a cup of coffee and a roll or a slice of toast, done on a little electric grill, the coffee above, the toast below. The hotel dining-room was almost free of women in the morning. There were only the men, intent on their papers and their eggs, and the 8:40 L.C. train. It was like a men's club, except perhaps for an occasional business woman, successful enough or indolent enough to do away with the cooking of the surreptitious matutinal egg in her own room. Sometimes, if they were to lunch at home, they carried in a bit of cold ham or cheese, rolls, butter, or small dry groceries concealed in muffs or handbags. They even had diminutive ice-boxes in closets. The hotel, perforce, shut its eyes to this sort of thing, even permitted the distribution of tiny cubes of ice by the hotel porter. It was a harmless kind of cheating. Their good dinners they ate in the hotel dining-room, when not invited to dine with married sons or daughters or friends. At 10 or 11 in the morning you saw them issue forth, or you saw little manicures going on. One spoke of these as little, not because of their size, which was normal, but in definition of their prices. There were little dressmakers as well, and little tailors. In special session they confided to one another the names or addresses of any of these who happened to be especially deft, or cheap, or modish. "I found a little tailor over on 55th. I don't want you to tell anyone else about him. He's wonderful. He's making me a suit that looks exactly like the model Hexter's got this year, and guess what he's charging?" The guess was, of course, always a triumph for the discoverer of the little tailor. The great lake dimpled or roared not 20 feet away. The park offered shade and quiet. The broad veranda invited one with its ample armchairs. You would have thought that peace and comfort had come at last to this shrewd, knowledgeless, hard-worked woman of 60. She was handsomer than she had been at 20 or 30. The white powdering her black hair softened her face, lightened her sallow skin, gave a fine lustre to her dark eyes. She used a good powder, and had an occasional facial massage. Her figure, though full, was erect, firm, neat. Around her throat she wore an inch-wide band of black velvet that becomingly hid the cords and sagging chin muscles. Yet now, if ever, in her life, Hannah Winter was a slave. Every morning at 8 o'clock Marcia telephoned her mother. The hotel calls cost 10 cents, but Marcia's was an unlimited phone. The conversation would start with a formula. "Hello, Mamma. How are you?" "Fine." "Sleep all right?" "Oh, yes. I never sleep all night through any more." "Oh, you probably just think you don't. Are you doing anything special this morning?" "Well, Why?" "Nothing. I just wondered if you'd mind taking Joan to the dentist's. Her brace came off again this morning at breakfast. I don't see how I can take her, because Elsie's given that luncheon at 1, you know, and the man's coming about upholstering that big chair at 10. I'd call up and try to get out of the luncheon, but I've promised. And there's bridge afterward, and it's too late now for Elsie to get a fourth. Besides, I did that to her once before, and she was furious. Of course, if you can't... But I thought if you haven't anything to do, really, why..." Through Hannah Winter's mind would flash the events of the day as she had planned it. She had meant to go downtown shopping that morning. Nothing special. Some business at the bank. Mandel's had advertised a sale of foulard. She hated foulards with their ugly, sprawling patterns. A nice, elderly sort of material. Marcia was always urging her to get one. Hannah knew she never would. She liked the shops in their spring vividness. She had a shrewd eye for a bargain. A bite of lunch somewhere, then she had planned to drop in at that lecture at the Woman's Club. It was by the man who wrote Your Town. He was said to be very lively and insulting. She would be home by 5, running in to see the children for a minute before going to her hotel to rest before dinner. A selfish day, perhaps, but 40 years of unselfish ones had paid for it. Well, shopping with 9-year-old Joan was out of the question. So, too, was the lecture. After the dentist had mended the brace, Joan would have to be brought home for her lunch. Peter would be there, too. It was Easter vacation time. Hannah probably would lunch with them in Marcia's absence, nagging them a little about their spinach and chop and applesauce. She hated to see the two children at table alone, though Marcia said that was nonsense. Hannah and Marcia differed about a lot of things. Hannah had fallen into the bad habit of saying, "When you were children, I didn't..." "Yes, but things are different now. Please remember, Mother. I want my children to have all the advantages I can give them. I want them to have all the advantages I never had." If Ed was present at such times, he would look up from his paper to say, "The kids will never thank you for it, Marsh. I don't want them to." There was something strangely familiar about the whole thing, as it sounded in Hannah's ears. The matter of the brace alone. There was a tiny gap between Joan's 2 front teeth, and strangely enough between Peter's as well. It seemed to Hannah that every well-to-do child in Hyde Park had developed this gap between the 2 incisors, and that all the soft pink child mouths in the district parted to display a hideous and disfiguring arrangement of complicated wire and metal. The process of bringing these teeth together was a long and costly one, totaling between $600 and $2,000, depending on the reluctance with which the parted teeth met, and the financial standing of the teeth's progenitors. Peter's dental process was not to begin for another year. 8 was considered the age. It seemed to be as common as vaccination. I don't know what's the matter with children's teeth nowadays. My children's teeth never had to have all this contraption on them. You got your teeth, and that was the end of it. Perhaps if they'd paid proper attention to them, Marcia would reply, there wouldn't be so many people going about with disfigured jaws now. Then there were the dancing lessons. Joan went twice a week, Peter once. Joan danced very well the highly technical steps of the sophisticated dances taught her at the Krysilov school. Her sturdy little legs were trained at the practice bar. Her baby arms curved obediently above her head, or in fixed relation to the curve of her body in the dance. She understood and carried into effect the French technical terms. It was called gymnastic and interpretive dancing. There was about it none of the spontaneity with which a child unconsciously endows impromptu dance steps. But it was graceful and lovely. Hannah thought Joan a second Pavlova, took vast delight in watching her. Taking Joan and Peter to these dancing classes was one of the duties that often devolved upon her. In the children's early years, Marcia had attended a child study class twice a week, and Hannah had more or less minded the two in their mother's absence. The incongruity of this had never struck her, or if it had, she had never mentioned it to Marcia. There were many good things she never mentioned to Marcia. Marcia was undoubtedly a conscientious mother, thinking of her children, planning for her children hourly. Their food, their clothes, their training, their manners, their education. Asparagus, steak, French, health shoes, fingernails, dancing, teeth, hair, curtsies. Train all the independence out of 'em, Hannah said sometimes, grimly, not to Marcia, though. She said it sometimes to her friends Julia Pierce or Sarah Clapp, or even to Vinnie Harding, the spinster of 60, for all three, including the spinster Vinnie, who was a great-aunt, seemed to be living much the same life that had fallen to Hannah Winter's lot. Hyde Park was full of pretty, well-dressed, energetic young mothers who were leaning hard upon the Hannah Winters of their own families. You saw any number of grey-haired, modishly gowned grandmothers trundling go-carts, walking slowly, with a moist baby fist in their gentle clasp, seated on park benches before which blue rompers dug in the sand or gravel or tumbled on the grass. The pretty young mothers seemed very busy, too, in another direction. They attended classes, played bridge, marketed, shopped, managed their households. Some of them had gone in for careers. None of them seemed conscious of the frequency with which they said, "Mother, will you take the children from 2 to 5 this afternoon?" Or, if they were conscious of it, they regarded it as a natural and normal request. What are grandmothers for? Hannah Winter loved the feel of the small velvet hands in her own palm, the clear blue-white of their eyes, the softness of their hair, the very feel of their firm, strong, bare legs gave her an actual pang of joy. But a half-hour, an hour with them, and she grew restless, irritable. She didn't try to define this feeling. You say you love the children, and yet when I ask you to be with them for half a day, I do love them, but they make me nervous. I don't see how they can make you nervous if you really care about them." Joan was Hannah's favourite, resembled her. The boy, Peter, was blond like his mother. In Joan was repeated the grandmother's sallow skin, dark eyes, vivacity, force. The two, so far apart in years, were united by a strong natural bond of sympathy and alikeness. When they were together on some errand or excursion, they had a fine time, if it didn't last too long. Sometimes the young married women would complain to each other about their mothers. "I don't ask her often, goodness knows, but I think she might offer to take the children 1 or 2 afternoons during their vacation, anyway. She hasn't a thing to do, not a thing." Among themselves, the grandmothers did not say so much. They had gone to a sterner school. But it had come to this. Hannah was afraid to plan her day. So often had she found herself called upon to forego an afternoon at bridge, a morning's shopping, an hour's mending even, or reading. She often had dinner at Marcia's, but not as often as she was asked. More and more she longed for and appreciated the orderly quiet and solitude of her own little room. She never analysed this, nor did Marcia or Ed. It was a craving for relaxation on the part of body and nerves strained throughout almost half a century of intensive living. Ed and Marcia were always doing charming things for her. Marcia had made the cushions and the silk lampshades for her. Marcia was always bringing her jellies and a quarter of a freshly baked cake done in Black Luty's best style. Ed and Marcia insisted periodically on her going with them to the theatre or downtown for dinner, or to one of the gardens where there was music and dancing and dining. This was known as taking mother out. Hannah Winter didn't enjoy these affairs as much, perhaps, as she should have. She much preferred a mild spree with one of her own cronies. Ed was very careful of her at street crossings and going down steps, and juggled her elbow a good deal. This irked her, though she tried not to show it. She preferred a matinée, or a good picture, or a concert with Sarah, or Vinnie, or Julia. They could giggle, and nudge, and comment like girls together, and did. Indeed, they were girls in all but outward semblance. Among one another they recognised this. Their sense of enjoyment was undulled. They liked a double chocolate ice cream soda as well as ever, a new gown, an interesting book. As for people, why, at 60 the world walked before them, these elderly women, its mind unclothed, all revealing. This was painful sometimes, but interesting always. It was one of the penalties and one of the rewards of living. After some such excursion, Hannah couldn't very well refuse to take the children to see a Fairbanks film on a Sunday afternoon, when Ed and Marcia were spending the half-day at the country club. Marcia was very strict about the children and films. They were allowed the saccharine Pickford, and of course Fairbanks' gravity-defying feats, and Chaplin's gorgeous grotesquerie. You had to read the titles for Peter. Hannah wasn't as quick at this as were Ed or Marcia, and Peter was sometimes impatient, though politely so. And so 60 swung round. At 60 Hannah Winter had a suitor. Inwardly she resented him. At 60 Clint Darrow, a widower now, and reverent in speech of the departed one, whose extravagance he had deplored, came to live at the hotel in 3-room grandeur overlooking the lake. A ruddy, corpulent, paunchy little man, and rakish withal. The hotel widows made much of him. Hannah, holding herself aloof, was often surprised to find her girlhood flame hovering near now, speaking of loneliness, of trips abroad, of a string of pearls unused. There was something virgin about the way Hannah received these advances. Marriage was so far from her thoughts. This kindly, plump little man so entirely outside her plans. He told her his troubles, which should have warned her. She gave him some shrewd advice, which encouraged him. He rather fancied himself as a Lothario. He was secretly distressed about his rotund waistline, and theoretically never ate a bite of lunch. "I never touch a morsel from breakfast until dinner time." Still, you might see him any day at noon at the Congress or the Athletic Club, or at one of the restaurants known for its savoury food, busy with one of the richer luncheon dishes and 2 cups of thick, creamy coffee. Though the entire hotel was watching her, Hannah was actually unconscious of Clint Darrow's attentions, or their markedness, until her son-in-law Ed teased her about him one day. "Some gal," said Ed, and roared with laughter. She resented this indignantly, felt that they regarded her as senile. She looked upon Clint Darrow as a fat old thing, if she looked at him at all, but rather pathetic, too, hence her kindliness toward him. Now she avoided him. Thus goaded, he actually proposed marriage, and repeated the items of the European trip, the pearls, and the unused house on Woodlawn Avenue. Hannah, feeling suddenly faint and white, refused him awkwardly. She was almost indignant. She did not speak of it, but the hotel somehow knew. Hyde Park knew. The thing leaked out. "But why?" said Marcia, smiling, giggling almost. "Why? I think it would have been wonderful for you, mother." Hannah suddenly felt that she need not degrade herself to explain why, she who had once triumphed over her own ordeal of marriage. Marcia herself was planning a new career. The children were 7 and 9, very nearly 8 and 10. Marcia said she wanted a chance at self-expression. She announced a course in landscape gardening. Landscape architecture was the new term. Chicago's full of people who are moving to the suburbs and buying big places out north. They don't know a thing about gardens. They don't know a shrub from a tree when they see it. It's a new field for women, in the country at least, and I'm dying to try it. That youngest Fraser girl makes heaps, and I never thought much of her intelligence. Of course, after I finish, and am ready to take commissions, I'll have to be content with small jobs at first. But later I may get a chance at grounds around public libraries, and hospitals, and railway stations. And if I can get one really big job at one of those new, rich North Shore places, I'll be made." The course required 2 years, and was rather expensive. But Marcia said it would pay in the end. Besides, now that the war had knocked Ed's business into the cocked hat for the next 5 years or more, the extra money would come in very handy for the children and herself and the household. Hannah thought the plan nonsense. "I can't see that you're pinched exactly. You may have to think a minute before you buy fresh strawberries for a meringue in February, but you do buy them. She was remembering her own lean days, when February strawberries would have been as unattainable as though she had dwelt on a desert island. On the day of the mirror accident in Peacock Alley, Hannah was meeting Marcia downtown for the purpose of helping her select spring outfits for the children. Later, Marcia explained there would be no time. Her class met every morning except Saturday. Hannah tried to deny the little pang of terror at the prospect of new responsibility that this latest move of Marcia's seemed about to thrust upon her. Marcia wasn't covering her own job, she told herself. Why take another? She had given up an afternoon with Sarah because of this need of Marcia's to-day. Marcia depended upon her mother's shopping judgment more than she admitted. Thinking thus, and conscious of her tardiness, she had napped for 10 minutes after lunch, Hannah Winter had met, face to face, with a crash, this strange, strained, rather haggard elderly woman in the mirror. It was, then, 10 minutes later than 2:07 when she finally came up to Marcia, waiting, lips compressed, at the Michigan Avenue entrance, as planned. "I bumped into that mirror. Oh, Mom, I'm sorry. Are you hurt? How in the world? Such a morning. Wash day. Children, their lunch, marketing, wallpaper. 53rd Street. 2 o'clock." Suddenly, "Yes, I know," said Hannah Winter tartly. "I had to do all those things, and more, 40 years ago." Marcia had a list. Let's see. Those smocked dresses for Joan would probably be all picked over by this time. Light-weight underwear for Peter. Joan's cape. Hannah Winter felt herself suddenly remote from all this, done with it, finished years and years ago. What had she to do with smocked dresses, children's underwear, capes? But she went in and out of the shops, up and down the aisles, automatically, gave expert opinion. By 5 it was over. Hannah felt tired, depressed. She was to have dinner at Marcia's to-night. She longed now for her own room, wished she might go to it and stay there quietly. "Marcia, I don't think I'll come to dinner to-night. I'm so tired. I think I'll just go home. But I got the broilers specially for you, and the sweet potatoes, candied the way you like them, and a lemon cream pie." When they reached home, they found Joan listless on the steps. One of her sudden sore throats. Stomach, probably. A day in bed for her. By tomorrow she would be quite all right. Hannah Winter wondered why she did not feel more concern. Joan's throats had always thrown her into a greater panic than she had ever felt at her own children's illnesses. To-day she felt apathetic, indifferent. She helped tuck the rebellious Joan in bed. Joan was spluttering about some plan for tomorrow, and Marcia was saying, "But you can't go tomorrow, Joan. You know you can't, with that throat. Mother will have to stay home with you, too, and give up her plans to go to the country club with Daddy. And it's the last chance she'll have, too, for a long, long time. So you're not the only one to suffer." Hannah Winter said nothing. They went in to dinner at 6:30. It was a good dinner. Hannah Winter ate little, said little. Inside Hannah Winter a voice, a great strong voice, shaking with its own earnestness and force, was shouting in rebellion. And over it said, to the woman in the mirror at the north end of Peacock Alley, "60 to go." That's what it says. And 10. And I haven't done a thing I've wanted to do. I'm afraid to do the things I want to do. We all are, because of our sons and daughters. 10 years. I don't want to spend those 10 years taking care of my daughter's children. I've taken care of my own. A good job, too. No one helped me. No one helped me. What's the matter with these modern mothers, with their newfangled methods and their efficiency and all? Maybe I'm an unnatural grandmother, but I'm going to tell Marcia the truth. Yes, I am. If she asks me to stay home with Joan and Peter tomorrow, while she and Ed go off to the country club, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say, listen to me, Ed and Marcia. I don't intend to spend the rest of my life toddling children to the park and playing second assistant nursemaid. I'm too old, or too young. I've only got 10 years to go, according to the Bible, and I want to have my fun. I've sown, I want to reap. My teeth are pretty good, and so is my stomach. They're better than yours will be at my age, for all your smart new dentists. So are my heart and my arteries and my liver and my nerves. Well, I don't want luxury. What I want is leisure. I want to do the things I've wanted to do for 40 years and couldn't. I want, if I feel like it, to start to learn French and read Jane Austen and stay in bed till noon. I never could stay in bed till noon, and I know I can't learn now, but I'm going to do it once if it kills me. I'm too old to bring up a second crop of children. I want to play. It's terrible to realize that you don't learn how to live until you're ready to die, and then it's too late. I know I sound like a selfish old woman, and I am, and I don't care. I don't care. I want to be selfish. So will you, too, when you're 60, Martha Slocum. You think you're young, but all of a sudden you'll be 60, like me. All of a sudden you'll realize... Mother, you're not eating a thing. Ed's kindly voice. Marcia, flushed of face, pushed her hair back from her forehead with a frenzied, familiar gesture. Eat? Who could eat with Joan making that insane racket in there? Ed, will you tell her to stop? Can't you speak to her just once? After all, she is your child, too, you know. Peter, eat your lettuce, or you can't have any dessert. How tired she looked, Hannah Winter thought. Little Martha. 2 babies, and she only a baby herself yesterday. How tired she looked. "I want to go," wailed Joan from her bedroom prison. "I want to go tomorrow. You promised me. You said I could. I want to go." "And I say you can't. Mother has to give up her holiday, too, because of you, and yet you don't hear me." "You!" shouted the naughty Joan, great-granddaughter of her great-grandmother, and granddaughter of her grandmamma. "You don't care. Giving up's easy for you. You're an old lady." And then Hannah Winter spoke up. "I'll stay with her tomorrow, Marcia. You and Ed go, and have a good time." End of Chapter 7, Part 2.